Your intuition is not noisy. It's not cloudy. It doesn't chatter. And it's certainly not mean. Welcome back to the Mike Method. I'm your host, Mike Desjardins. Today, I'm joined by LauraAura, keynote speaker, personal growth coach, and the host of the Gutsy Podcast, a top 100 show that helps people own what they really want and take bold action towards it. Laura spent more than 18 years as a business owner, built a successful branding agency, launched over 570 podcast episodes, and has spent the last decade helping people cut through hesitation, overthinking, and what she calls mind junk. In this conversation, we explore why your body often knows the truth before your brain is ready to accept it, how to move through the yeah buts that keep you stuck, why starting messy is often the only way forward, and what it really takes to stop letting yourself down in order to keep everyone else comfortable. If you've ever felt called towards something bigger, but talked yourself out of it before the next step, this one's for you. If you're enjoying the podcast so far, the best way to help us continue to grow our audience is to hit that subscribe button. Let's dive in. LauraAura, thanks for making time to be on the podcast today.
Hey, Mike, thanks for having me.
So as I was thinking about getting ready for today, I think, you've got a very specific brand around Gutsy that is kind of who you are in the world. And I guess I sort of had one opening question is, why does our brain get in the way of the message our body is trying to tell us?
I mean, our brain's number one job is to protect and guide us, right? And so our brain only knows what it has known up until this point. And when you go to do something different, it freaks your brain out thinking that it's wrong or it's not the right thing, or, it's not familiar with it. But your body knows what your brain is not yet ready to process. So when we tap into our body and we listen to what are the cues? What does a yes versus a no feel like? Where is it trying to guide me? Before it gets cloudy and noisy and complicated, if we just slow down, create a little bit of space and pay attention to what our body is trying to say, we often have the answer that our brain will not let us process.
So it's almost like our body and our brain are in a fight to see who's going to win the battle to change, right? Because I feel like what I hear you saying is that we've got almost this innate ability to understand what's next for us. And then, my assumption is that our brain is like, yeah, but, you can't cause.
Yeah, exactly. The cool thing about that though is we're constantly training our brain.
Okay.
Right. So whatever we're doing, think of something that you did. Okay. Your podcast here. At one point, this was brand new.
Yeah.
You didn't know what you were doing. You were new to this world, all the tech pieces and all the, how's this going to happen in the background and all this, right? And so at first, I might imagine that your brain was like, what are we doing? There are a million other podcasts out there. Who's going to listen to this show? I don't know how to do this. Other people are sharper than I am, right? Yeah. Maybe a couple of those things went through your mind.
Well, I think I was listening to some phenomenal podcasts that I really admired, like whether it was Rich Roll or Tim Ferriss or, Modern Wisdom, Diary of a CEO. And I'm like, I'm so inspired. And I didn't want to replicate something they were doing. I wanted to do my authentic version of it. But there were things about those podcasts that I really liked. And I thought, well, I don't know what the guests are going to be like though. So I'll try to do my part, but a lot will rely on the people that I have on the podcast. And can I get it? Because, the person who inspired me to do this, Steph Corker's like, you have to release one weekly. I'm like, where are the guests coming from for this?
How am I going to keep up with that volume? And
I'm like, how many interesting people do I know that I can do that? So it was really kind of like, what's the volume? And at the beginning, I had no producer. It was me. I was just taking the footage and playing it with myself and loading it up on YouTube. And there was no intro. It was just sort of dive in and go. There was no schedule to it. It was like, who can I get to be on this podcast? And then I got a producer, Katie, who's unbelievable. And, everything this is episode 102, right? So 102 episodes later, it's like, okay, there's a flow to this. I get it. So yeah, I absolutely had the experience you're describing. And if I had listened to all of the reasons why I couldn't do it, then I wouldn't have started it. But at the time, I'm like, I feel compelled to do this. And I feel like the only way I'm ever going to get good at it is if I just start. And I'd heard something that I think it was either Ali Abdaal or it was Chris Williamson who said, if you're not embarrassed by your first bunch of episodes, then you took too long to get started. And I'm like, well, I can fully start by doing episodes that I won't be proud of in the future. I can accomplish that goal.
Yeah, listen, we'll come back to that in a second, because I just aired episode 572.
Wow.
Of the Gutsy Podcast.
Awesome.
So we're gonna hold on that. I'm gonna come back to that in a second. But I just wanted to finish this thought around, in the beginning, you had no idea what you were doing, and your brain is doing somersaults around all the possible reasons why this thing would not work.
Yeah.
But there was something in you, in your body, that told you that it could. And so eventually, with enough action, right, this is where Gutsy Moves really gets its form, is when you're willing to take that one next step, when you're willing to be new at something and try something, you're familiarizing your body with like, oh, hey, this is a new option. This was not a thing yesterday, but it's a little bit of a thing today. And the more that you do it, the more you show up for it, the more comfortable you get, not just with the skills and the abilities, but in your body to say like, oh, this is what we do now. Like now not doing the podcast feels like more of a threat than continuing to do it, because it's so familiar in your body.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the whole thing, is like, we're always training ourselves, and your body is always listening to what your brain is saying and vice versa. And it's that constant kind of back and forth, and really getting to know, like I said, what does a yes feel like versus what is a no? And I got to tell you, your intuition is not noisy. Mm-hmm. Like your inner knowing is not cloudy. It is not loud. It does not chatter. And it certainly is not mean. Mm. It's often very quiet, very direct, very like kind of a passing whisper that goes by, almost so subtle sometimes that you can miss it if you're not paying attention. Mm-hmm. So if you get a little bit confused, like, am I feeling this? Am I making this up in my head? Just know that if it's loud and it's noisy in your brain, that's your ego getting involved. That's your brain trying to protect you. That's not your intuition.
I love that. I love this extends outside of just podcasting, right? Whether it's, posting on TikTok or YouTube, Instagram, whatever, right? Like social media in general, putting yourself out and doing that first public speech, right? That first opportunity, going onto a panel discussion, that first time you're invited to be up on the stage, right? Whether it's emceeing a wedding, if you've never done something like that before, right? Like all of those things carry the same kind of, you got to just be prepared to get out there and see what happens. I learned an interesting stat around podcasting recently, which is like only 1% of podcasts ever get past episode 20.
Yeah.
And so the reality is, it's like, well, 20 episodes, not that many episodes. You and I can say that. You've done 572, this is 102 for me. So we can say, like I had no idea. And so in my mind, I'm like, oh, I'm only like getting to 100 episodes. Like, doesn't feel like I've accomplished anything. And then it was actually the producer, Katie, who was like, yeah, but 1% of podcasts don't make it past episode 20. So, for anybody who's listening to this, like, I think the volume of which and the success that people think they need to create at the beginning does not match the reality of what's required to start something new, whatever.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's so true for everything. Like we go into it expecting ourselves to be experts and like perfect at the whole picture that we're not even living yet. And it's like, we just have to be willing to start and do the thing that we feel called to do, right? Or to experiment or to try. We were talking about those early episodes. Listen, Mike, the early episodes of the Gutsy Podcast are absolutely cringeworthy, but you know something? I leave them. And the same with my early Instagram posts, I leave them because without day one, Laura showing up for this podcast, there would not be episode 572 right now. I would likely not be speaking full time as a career.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like my message wouldn't be as sharp. I wouldn't be so confident in my skin. And so I look back and I listen, like sometimes I'll have people that are like, oh, I'm going to start from the very first episode. I want to hear them all. And I'm like, do you really want to do that? But then I'm like, you know what? You're going to go on a journey with me. You're going to see, hear, and feel evolutions of me. You're going to hear me changing my business and selling my business and starting this new thing and listening to everything fall apart. And those early ones were literally scripted. Like I would write out everything that I was going to say because I didn't want to miss anything. And you can tell, right? But I free flow it now. I give myself a couple of bullet points and I tap in and I free flow it now, but I can only do that now because I scripted it before.
Right.
I got comfortable in my voice and I realized that's not the way I want to do this. So it's that early experimental, like we got to let go of the expectation of what it should be. And we just got to let like let it be what it's supposed to be in that season.
So you brought up your business. So let's go down. I'd love for listeners to understand like how you got into this work and why this became a passion for you. Because, I'm sure when you decided to get out of your business, you had friends or family members, other entrepreneurs who are like, what are you doing? Like, you've got a great business. Like, why are you getting out of that to go really to they would see it probably as uncertainty. Maybe you did, and I don't know what your feelings were at the time, but I'm super curious to understand. Like, you obviously came to some point in your life when you're like, yeah, I'm pivoting and I'm going to do this. So tell us that story.
Yeah. So my background is in branding and marketing.
Yeah.
I ran a branding agency for 16 years. I spent 22 years in the branding world, and I loved it until I didn't, We grow, we evolve. I did everything that I wanted to. I accomplished everything that I wanted to. I revived that business more times than I care to count. And it was interesting, right? Like at this point, it's post-COVID. A lot of big changes had happened. And I just found myself not as excited about my work anymore. I was procrastinating on projects, getting out of bed in the morning, started to feel like a chore. I wasn't marketing my business anymore. The new ideas and like wanting to grow the business had stopped. And I'm like, okay, clearly something's happening here, right? Like, cause that's not normal for me. And I'll never forget, I was asked to speak at a women's event, and normally I would be all in on that, but they were like, Laura, we want you to speak on branding. And my whole body just like closed up like a dried sponge. And I was like, I could never. And I'm like, okay, clearly I need to do a little bit of introspective work, because something is happening here. Something is shifting. And just over the course of a couple of months, I just started to realize like maybe this isn't it anymore. But it was terrifying to even consider leaving something that I had a 22-year career run in. Like, my reputation was in this. This is what people knew me for. This is what my talent and my degrees were in. This is how I fed my family, right? There was all these reasons to not listen to this, but things shifted. Our largest client, their contract was ending. I didn't want to replace them. My lead designer was leaving. I didn't want to replace her. And I'm like, I had a breakdown, a literal actual breakdown, where I called my husband. And I'm like, you got to get here. We were at a building that we owned at the time, which I also sold. That's a whole conversation of its own. And he walked in the door, and Mike, I was like, I don't want this business anymore. I cried a cry that I could not replicate today, even if I wanted to. And it was the first time that I really admitted that I was done. And that was July. By that December, the business was sold. 2 months later, we sold our commercial building because I decided I didn't want that either. So, it was a wild ride. It was very much built on listening and noticing what my body was saying. You see a through line here, friends. Your body says what your brain cannot yet comprehend. And my body was saying that this is not it. It's time to make that gutsy move. It's time to make that change. And so I completely left the industry and have no regrets.
It's interesting because I think you broke through the sunk cost fallacy, right? Which is that, you've got 16 years into this business. So the thought of, as hard as it can be and as many pivots as you made along the way, there's still that sunk cost fallacy of like, but I've invested so much time.
Oh yeah.
Energy. Like, your brain would be telling you all the reasons why, well, you don't know what's going to happen next. Like, all of those things. Well, if you sell this, what are you going to do? And I think, it's so much easier to stay in a bad situation than it is to reach out to uncertainty. And I think there's a piece there. The word that comes up for me is the word trust, but it's not just trust, it's self-trust, which is that if it isn't this and this doesn't work for me and my body is telling me that, then I have to trust that I will figure out on the other side what this is. And the challenge is, the more successful you are doing the thing that you now hate doing or dislike doing or don't feel energized by anymore, the harder it is to then think, well, but I can't give up what I created.
Yeah. Yeah. I went through that, not just with the branding agency, but with the building.
Yeah.
So post COVID, after I got things resituated, I did what every normal, sane human being does. I bought a commercial building because why not?
Why not?
I'm a community builder. I love creating space, and we developed plans. We were building out a commercial space that was going to have co-working space, event space, place for people to rent out conference rooms, like really a space for entrepreneurs to come together or for community people to come together and do things. And I had the tile picked out. I mean, everything was lined up. And in the 11th hour, I was like, I don't want this either. It feels heavy to me. It feels like a distraction from what I really want to be doing, which I did know at the time was speaking and coaching and continuing to grow the Gutsy Podcast. So those worlds were crossing over at the same time. I had already been speaking for a little while, but not getting paid for it. I already had the podcast up and running, but it was all there, but it wasn't the right thing. And one of the hardest parts of that was we had involved the community so deeply in the plans and the process of that building.
Okay.
We put out the renderings. We had a wait list for people that wanted to rent the space. We had contracts lined up, ready to be signed for people that wanted to use the space. I mean, it was all there. And right after I decided, okay, I don't want the building anymore, my next thought was, oh my God, I have to tell everybody.
Right.
I'm going to let all these people down.
Yeah.
And I felt really bad about that because people were expecting it, like this was a hot topic in our little tiny town. And I'm like, I have let myself down so many times in life. I can't do that anymore. I'm not willing to do that anymore. And so if it means disappointing these folks, that's what I'm going to have to do. But I'm also going to trust that whatever is going to go into this building after I sell it is exactly what this community needs. And it turns out that is true. But to your point, like this is what, with the agency, it was like, this is what I've invested my entire adulthood in. Literally, from the time I left high school, I went right into the industry in my schooling. That's everything that I'd ever known. And with the building, everybody was so involved in it. And I'm like, it feels ridiculous to let go of something that I've put so much time and effort into, but it feels more ridiculous to continue to let myself down. And so it was just kind of this fork in the road moment where I had to decide, what do I want more? Do I want to maintain the thing that I've built that I feel trapped in? Or do I want to let all of that go so I can pursue the thing that I actually want?
And I think that the message that I'm getting from that decision point you came to is, to be true to myself and what I know I need to do for me means disappointing other people. Yeah. And so I'm sort of stuck, it sounds like you're stuck in this place where you're like, well, the only way to be true to myself is to disappoint other people. I think that there's a bunch of social consequences that you might believe, or like, what are they going to do? What space are they going to work from? They were promised this thing and it's not going to be available. How could I do that to them? And then the question comes down to, well, but I can't be true to myself if I continue down that path. So here's the interesting thing. You have the ability to have hindsight now. So did the lives of all of the people that were connected to that commercial space just completely collapse as a result of you being true to yourself? I'd love for you to share that piece of the story.
Turns out, to my knowledge anyway, everybody's fine.
Who knew, right?
You know what? I think sometimes we forget that people are capable of figuring themselves out too.
Yeah.
And sometimes we have to let them.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have to just get out of the way and trust that, this is happening for something bigger for all of us that none of us can see right now. And so maybe they ended up in a space that was better for them. Yeah. Or they went to a different co-working space where they met their new business partner and now they're growing something new. Or they met somebody that introduced them to their next new client. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm just trusting that everyone landed exactly where they're supposed to be, including myself.
Yeah.
Because the other part of that is if I continue to dismiss what I really want to do, I'm letting down all the future people that I'm intended to support.
Ooh. Right. Okay. That's a whole other meta level then. Yeah. I mean, okay. So if you let yourself down to support other people, make the decision for other people, then you're letting down the future people that your true authentic self might not even have met yet, right? Or even know about. And the influence and the connection that you have with them, that's lost as a result of you not being true to yourself. That's a pretty powerful statement.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, when you're living in alignment with yourself and what you're really here to do, your impact is immeasurable. And so all of those people that I'm intended to help and support and guide, I think about the people that I've helped since I left all of that stuff and to where I am right now, which is now that's been 2.5 years. I wouldn't have had the time, capacity, energy, depth to be able to support all of the people that I have helped make moves in the last 2.5 years. And if I think about my own four walls before anybody outside of them, the expansion that I've been able to give my family to be able to shift our financial situation, to be able to regain my health in a way that was just not sustainable in other ways. You know what I mean? Like I would have stopped all of that or not been able to achieve the depth of it that I'm currently experiencing and what is yet to come. So sometimes we got to let go of the expectation and really step into, you know what, there's actually so much more on the other side of this. More not in the sense of like more of this and bigger that and flashy this and all. I'm not all about that, right? More in the sense of more of what I actually want in this world.
I want to pull in a thread back to episode 1. There was a point at which you decided, I'm going to do podcast.
Yeah.
Why? Like, what was the reason? Why did you feel compelled to even do it in the first place? And I'm happy to answer that personally, because I have a very specific reason that I decided, but I'm curious for you, why?
Yeah, same. I get giddy about this because it reminds me, right? Like I love to talk about this because it just reignites this whole Gutsy mission.
Yeah.
So when I was running the branding agency, we would have our branding meetings. We always worked with entrepreneurs, people in business, and we would have our normal branding meeting, right? In the conference room, we'd have the thing, and inevitably the owner after the meeting would pull me to the side and say, Laura, do you have a minute? And I'm like, yeah, what you got? And it was in this little space, this very intimate little corner of my office where these entrepreneurs cracked open in a way that they could not in front of others. They wanted to talk about this really big, audacious idea that they had where they thought everyone else was going to think that they were batshit crazy. Or they had people that were like, well, how are you going to do this? And what are you going to do about that? Right? Like questioning their idea instead of supporting it or at least just listening to it. Or on the flip side, something that they were terrified about. Like, I have this deep fear or I have this problem going on and I don't have anybody else that I can talk to about this. And I'm afraid if other people know, it's going to look like I don't have my shit together. It's going to look like everything's falling apart. Like I don't know what I'm doing. And in that space, Mike, I swear to you, my whole body lit up. I'm like, I want to talk about all that gritty shit that we all deal with in silence. The good, the bad, the ugly, the reality, the mind game that we play with ourselves. The I'm on top of the world 1 minute and 45 seconds later, I think I'm a piece of shit. Like what? Like how did we go on this landslide all of a sudden? You know what I mean? And I craved those conversations, loved them because we were talking about something that was real. And after, I don't know, a handful of these, a dozen or two, I was like, okay, something's happening here. I love this. They keep coming to me and these are all different people in all different situations, right? And so I thought, well, if you feel like that and I feel like this, maybe there are other business owners and leaders that feel like this too. Spoiler alert, all of them do. Every single one of them. You know what I mean? Because it's that stuff that happens in the background. And so I was like, well, I want to have these conversations, but I want to have them out loud. So for the people that were willing, I started something at the time was called the Green Couch Project. I have a chartreuse couch that I set up in my office. It was a whole production, cameras, lighting, photography, all that great stuff. And we had these raw conversations and we put them up on YouTube and they performed really well. And the number one thing that I heard back from people was, oh my God, I thought I was the only one. Oh my God, this gave me so much encouragement. Oh my God, I want to keep going now. And it got to this point where I wanted to grow and expand it, but limitations with funding and just the whole production of all of it. I'm like, how can I do this more without all of that extra overhead? I'll figure out how to launch a podcast. So I bought a $25 Logitech headset off of Amazon. I opened GarageBand on my Mac and I taught myself how to record episodes. And so that Green Couch Project then turned into the Gutsy Podcast. And now it's been up for 7 years in the top 1.5% of global podcasts. Awesome. And 570 plus aired episodes later. We're still doing it.
I love that origin story, why you started it and how you pivoted, and also just the tenacity and persistence that it takes to get to that volume of podcasts, right? Like, I think there's a point anywhere along that way when you could have said like, okay, I've done enough episodes, like we've got it, I've kind of covered it. And, but you're well past that. You're well past that number at this stage.
I'll tell you though, real quick, every once in a while, I'll be like, does this matter?
Yeah.
Is anyone listening? Because the weird thing about podcasting is I'm always talking into nothing. I spend a lot of time alone in my basement office with my microphone. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And so anytime where I'm like, is this going to land? Is this what
Yeah.
people want? Is this making a difference? Like, is this
Yeah.
helping anybody? I swear to you, every single time that I have that thought, inevitably, I get a random DM from someone I've never met before in my life
Yeah.
that tells me how impactful the episode just was. And I'm like, okay, universe, I got it. Keep going. So yeah, if there's one thing about me, I play the long game, and I'm okay with that.
Love that. The thing I find fascinating is that I never know which episode or which part of an episode is going to resonate with people. And then when I see the comments or people reach out to me personally and share it with me, which I really appreciate when they do, because I'm like, to go back and listen to it sometimes. The episode they're talking about, like, oh, that was the part. Okay, cool. I mean, it's great. The part.
You just never know.
And yeah, you don't know. And the episodes that get like the most downloads and the most comments, like, who knows, right? Like when we recorded, I'm like, that was great, but so is the one we did yesterday and the one we're going to do next week. Like, they're all great episodes, but how they resonate with somebody is up to each individual. And then sometimes it just hits a collective where that message is the message that a group of people just needed to hear at that moment in time. And I had no idea. Like I just felt lucky that I had this amazing person on the podcast who was willing to share their wisdom and experience.
Yeah. Why did you get into podcasting? What's your origin story?
Yeah, the crazy thing was that what started was a conversation. I bought a business, a competitor, a couple of years ago, and the CEO of that business said to me, "You have a 25-year-old business, and yet you have zero personal like branding online. You're barely on your own website." And she said, today CEOs, founders need to be out there in the world with a brand associated to them. And most of them have a larger social following than the company that they have founded or lead. And she's like, so people don't know who you are. And, it took a while for us to do this transaction. She's like, I've really gotten to know you quite well. And I think that you have a lot to share. And she's like, I've noticed that you're really well connected, like globally. You, like, the people that are in your atmosphere that I've gotten to know are like phenomenal. And, we've gone for dinner or lunch with some of them. And she's like, we just like record the lunch conversation and there's the podcast. And I suddenly realized, yeah, I do have access to these phenomenal people. And when we sit and talk, like the wisdom and the experience that they have is quite considerable. They are world-class in this one thing, like you have decided that you're going to focus on. And I'm like, I can create a platform for these people to tell their stories. And many of them aren't big podcast guests. Like they are just really successful people. And so they come on and like, I've never done this before. I hope it's going to be okay. But I know them really well, or I've gotten to know them. And I'm like, well, I know our coffee or dinner conversations are phenomenal. And I've heard you speak to groups of entrepreneurs or other leaders before. It's going to be great. And so that's really what inspired it for me, was this ability to bring these messages out that I feel super lucky to have had through these connections. And they've greatly influenced how I've changed, how I've grown as a leader, as a human being, as a dad, as a husband. And I just felt compelled to put them out in the world. So that's really the origin story, is those two reasons. And so it's very much disconnected from my business, even though, people know what I do. It's not hard to Google search me. It was really about, having the guts to go out there, because it was risky. I'm like, do people want to hear what I have to say, or do they want to hear, like, I think they want to hear what these guests have to say, but maybe nobody downloads them ever. Like maybe the only person who listens to it is the guest or a couple of their friends. Now it's not turned out to be that. It's actually turned out to work out, but I had no idea. Like, who knew?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I love that. Again, it starts with these kind of side conversations. I can see you in a dimly lit, awesome restaurant, just having this really powerful conversation that, gosh, if somebody could just be a fly on the wall, this could really have an impact. And that's essentially what you've done here, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing, like with any move that we make, anything that we create, it could absolutely flop. I've created more things than I care to count that have taken off zero. I like crickets, absolutely nothing. But it doesn't take that many things to actually land for things to work really well. And so, yeah, it might not do well, but gosh, what if it actually does really well? We're so trained to think the worst. Mm-hmm. What if we start to think about the best? Like
Right.
this could, both of us here and anybody that's listening that maybe has a show or whatever you're working on in your career or in your business right now, holy shitballs, like this could actually work. Like what if we start getting into that kind of energy? You know what I mean? Like we move differently when we believe in our abilities instead of dwelling on what's not going to work.
I sent my daughter when she was little, I sent her this little Instagram thing, or I showed it to her, and I said to her, I said, this is what I think about you every day. And it was a bird on a branch, like a little baby bird. And the baby bird is looking up at the mom and says, but what if I fall? And the mom says, but what if you fly?
Yeah.
And I said, Lily, this is like what I want as a dad for you, is like those times where you're afraid of falling. I want to be there to remind you that you really could fly. And I think as an adult, I still need to hear that.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, we get wrapped up in our own minds, or if you're on the heels of something that didn't work out or didn't go as planned, it takes a hit, it doesn't feel great, but gosh, there's so much more to it. And I don't know about you, but every single time that something has bottomed out, I've gotten exactly what I needed. A lesson, a connection, a realization, healing moment, clarity on something else. So even if you are experiencing or have experienced what I might consider a failed moment or something that didn't work out the way that you hoped that it would, what did you gain from that? Because it's what you do with that dictates where we're going to go next.
I'd love to normalize the yeah buts.
Yeah.
If we could. So you've done enough speaking, enough coaching, you've had enough people on the podcast now to probably have run into all the excuses that people have to not do the gutsy thing, to not live up to their, untapped potential, to not, jump off the cliff and see if they can fly. What are the most common things we do as human beings that we tell ourselves? Like, what do we tell ourselves that everyone tells ourselves? Just because I would think if you were listening to this right now, hearing the things that everybody says, like, oh, I say that too. All of a sudden it's like, oh, everybody says that. I think that may be helpful to know.
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely some common denominators.
Okay.
One of the biggest ones that always comes up is, yeah, but how is this going to affect other people? So the people in our lives, our team, our staff, our employees, our family, our friends, like, I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to upset people. I don't want to let people down. We talked about that earlier with the building. I might have let people down, and that's just it. You know what I mean? It's not out of ill will. It's just, I had to choose what was right for me and my family. So other people is almost always at the top of the list. Yeah, but I don't have time. Time is a big one. I don't have time to do this. I don't have time to do that. I don't have time to go as deep as I want to. And it's like, okay, what are you continuing to do that's actually taking up the time that you could be having to make this change, to go after it, to figure out what you need to figure out so that you can make this next move? Time, it's not going to make time for you. You have to make time for it. So we're choosing what's important to us. And sometimes that means we have to let some things go or remove some things from our life or let go of commitments that we've made in the past to create space to be able to move forward. But everyone else has already done this.
Okay. That's a good one.
Especially in the podcast world, right? Like there's 4.5 million active podcasts right now.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, but there's already a podcast for that. Yep, there probably is. You're right. But you do it your own way. That's a very important piece of everything, by the way, is doing things your way, showing up as yourself, talking as yourself, moving as who you truly are, not putting on this facade. I'm the same person from 9 to 5 as I am from 5 to 9. You're not going to get a different version of me. It just is who I am, right? But it took some time to get comfortable with that. And so, there might be 100 other people doing the business idea that you have, or there might be 500 other people going for that job that you want to apply for, or 4.5 million podcasts out there and you want to start a podcast, right? But nobody does it your way. And the most important thing that you can do to attract the right people in your world is to show up as yourself. So there might be a bunch of people doing it, but nobody's you. Nobody is you. And you have your own unique way about yourself. You have your own special sauce, so to speak. And the right people need you, not the other 100, 500, 4.5 million people. So those are just a couple that tend to come to the forefront. I mean, there's a laundry list we could keep going down, but those tend to come to the surface more often than not.
On the time one, I read the other day that if you scroll on social media for 4 hours a day. That's 61 days a year.
Everybody just hold that. Everyone just hold that for a second.
Just for like a minute, we should think about that number.
Just put that, just sit with that. Let's mourn that for a moment.
Because and so the thing is, well, so I should just not be on social media. No, I'm not saying that. But like if you cut it in half, you'd get 30 and a half days back.
Yeah.
In a year.
And okay, you can listen, I love a good black hole TikTok scroll. Like I love to just veg out sometimes. It's mind numbing. It's fabulous. I'm mad about it. Right.
Yeah.
But if it gets to the point where it's stopping you from doing what you really want to do or eating into the time that you need to be spending on something to take your life or your career forward, okay, now we have a different discussion to have.
Yeah. I think that's the thing where it's like, well, I don't have the time. Okay, well, are there other areas of your life like scrolling? Even if it's like, you don't have to go to zero, but if you were to cut it back, a little bit, how much could you get done if you had 30 extra days in the year? Like when I think about that, I'm like, if somebody gave me 395 days in a year and everyone else that was doing the thing I wanted to do only got 365 days, I would make more progress than them. Like full stop. It doesn't even matter what the thing is. If it was, I wanted to become a better pickleball player, if I wanted to become a better tennis player, if I got an extra 30 days to do that, if I wanted to start a side hustle and nobody else had that extra 30 days, I am genuinely going to be further ahead.
Yeah.
Than where I was last year. So I think the time one is one that I think comes up a lot for people because we all have busy lives and some people have got kids or they've got family members that they're caring for, or they've got busy jobs or whatever. There's always a reason, right? And if we were to dissect where the time's going, it's like, well, okay, can we stack any of these things, right? Like, can we stack things? So for me, I'm like, well, I want to spend time with incredible people. And I want to spend time with people that I know that I don't get to spend enough time with because we have busy lives. I'll have them on as a guest on the podcast.
Yeah.
So there I'm like accomplishing something I'm trying to drive forward, but I'm doing it with people like I actually genuinely want to spend time with. And so I've like doubled the effectiveness of the same time.
Yeah. I mean, again, if you don't make time for it, it's not going to make time for you. And time, you also don't have to have like gargantuan chunks of time to be able to make progress. I think that's a big misconception as well. So whatever gutsy move that you are on the cusp of, or maybe in the middle of, you don't have to like lock down for 16 hours today to, make progress. If you dedicated a little bit of time every single day and you made intentional moves towards it, eventually it's going to happen. Like it's going to come together. It's going to launch. You're going to get it done. You're going to have the opportunity, right? Like it's going to happen. And so I think sometimes we discount the power of the smaller moves that actually create the bigger move. Go ahead.
Well, no, I think you touched on something there because it reminded me of that movie, What About Bob? It's old, but he goes to see a psychiatrist and he's really stuck and he can't move forward in life. And it's like, well, you just need to make baby steps. He's like, well, what's the baby step? He's like, you're struggling to leave the house. You're just going to get dressed. That's it. That's a baby step. Then the next day you're going to get dressed and you're going to make it to the front door, but you're not going to leave the front door. And then the day after you're going to get dressed, you get to the front door and you're going to walk out the front door, but you're not going to leave the building. And it's like in each day, just add a little baby step on top of that. And I think for a lot of people I've spoken to who have got the thing that they really have always wanted to do, they feel like the first step needs to be some big, bold move. And because it's so big and they don't know how to do it, it's literally the block. Like there's no way to move forward. So like, I think you bring up this point, which is great, which is one, you don't need a large amount of time. But what I also heard you say is the steps don't have to be that big. There can be really small baby steps in a very short space of time. And what's your take on that?
Listen, I think that's honestly the only way to effectively get it done.
Okay.
Because I think about like when I sold the agency, I don't know how to sell a business.
Sure.
That's not something I woke up and did every day. Do you know what I mean? So that was the end big move. But how I got there, the first thing I did, I emailed my accountant.
Right.
That was a gutsy move.
Yeah.
I emailed my attorney. I have questions. Can we talk?
Right.
You know what I mean? And so you just start stacking this information. You just start gathering like, okay, here's the one next thing. Here's the one next thing. And before you know it, you've got momentum and things are moving in the right direction. And then that thing, the bigger thing, I find, I'm kind of curious if you experience this too, but I find that bigger thing is actually way less of a big thing once I get there, because the big things were actually all the little things.
Right.
It was all those moments where I showed up for myself instead of going away. When I took the move instead of hiding, when I tried versus shutting down, you know what I mean? And there were definitely moments, don't get me wrong, where I was just like, I don't know how to do this. I just can't today, and shut the laptop and just ignore it. Right. But guess what? Tomorrow comes. And if I want to do this thing, I got to do the thing. Shocker. Right. But that's how it has to happen. that those bigger moments, yes, they come with pride. Yes, they come with excitement. But I find that there's actually kind of like a lot less fireworks and flashiness in that end result, because I took like 100 million smaller moves to get to it, and those somehow felt more impactful. Curious how you feel about that.
Actually, something you said reminded me of something I learned a long time ago, which you didn't explicitly call out, so I'm going to call out, which is that Dan Sullivan from Strategic Coach wrote a book called It's Who, Not How. And the premise behind his book is that most people who are trying to accomplish things, their first thought is, I know what it is I want to try to accomplish. And then the next step they go to is, I don't know how to get there, but I have to go figure out the how. So I'm going to go maybe research it on the internet. I'm going to use Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini. Like, I don't know. I'm going to go try to figure out the how. But what your story said was you went, what? I want to sell my business. And then your next step was who? Well, who should I call? I'm going to call my accountant, my lawyer. So whereas a lot of people would have said, well, now I got to go research how you sell a business and what the steps are, what to look for, like what to look out for. And you didn't even go there. He's like, no, I'm going to call two people that sell businesses and know how to do this. And I think the trap of going what to how stops a lot of people from ever making progress. And if instead you just went like, I know what I want to do, I just have to figure out who's already done it, who can do it for me, or who can help me with it.
Yeah. Listen, there's a wealth full of knowledge out there. And there are people that know how to do the thing that you are racking your brain up against. Like, I love a good research. Don't get me wrong. I like to figure things out and tinker. But, with stuff like that, it's like, who knows what I don't? And are they willing to get on the phone with me? And I think something that's wrapped up in that, I think sometimes is being okay and comfortable saying that I don't know the answer. I need your help. It's receiving the help. It's being in a vulnerable space of like, I don't know. And I'm trusting that you'll hold me in that space, or at least be open to me asking some questions or getting some guidance or pointing me in the right direction. So it's a little bit of a vulnerable spot, but it's a power move. Because guess what? It shortcuts all the time and energy that it's spent on researching and figuring it out and creating something from scratch, when somebody that that you trust might have the answer, or at least the one next step that you can take to get it.
Well, even if you've just got the what and you don't feel like you have the guts to take that next step, I mean, I think that's where somebody like you is super helpful to have as a coach, is that people can come to you and you've seen so many people's whats. You've seen all of the baby steps they need to take. You've seen all of the who's they needed to talk to get out of the way. So you have so many examples to pull from that I'm sure that anybody that brought a what to you, there's no what that somebody most likely within reason could bring to you that you wouldn't be able to coach them through. Okay, let's talk about baby steps. Let's talk about who you can help you to kind of like unstick someone from a mindset. So if you're listening to this and you're kind of like, oh, I've got all the yeah buts that are stopping me. I've got the what I want to accomplish, but I feel like all I do is talk about the what, but I never take any action on it. Now they've got a resource in you. They can reach out to you. We'll put all the links to how to get in contact with you for anyone that's feeling like that. So if you're listening, you're not alone, first of all. So know that this is normal to feel this way. This is part of our human condition. But Laura's here, and she's somebody that can actually help you get unstuck. And it's been honestly a pleasure to just be in this conversation with you today, to hear your origin story, to hear, that you've lived it yourself. So you have this felt sense of what people are going through, and that you've decided to dedicate your life to helping people to get gutsy. It's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you. I'll say here quickly, the stuff on the other side of your willingness to go for it is mind blowing in the best of ways. everything that you thought was possible but questioned starts just to become your life, right? The things that felt so far off, all of a sudden, like you look around one day and realize it's your reality. And it's immeasurable. It's, as humans, we need this. We need to believe in ourselves. We need to consciously choose to stop settling for things that we are finished with or are uncomfortable with, and instead choose, what do we actually want? And if you've got the ambition and the willingness to go for it, it's all yours.
Let's go. Thank you, LauraAura. You're awesome.
My pleasure. Thanks, Mike.